Hello and welcome to the Unica LE Debate Youth Cup 2021. Before I continue, I would like to invite Mr. Irfan bin Jasni, the Program Director of UDYC 2021, to give a welcoming speech. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Irfan bin Jasni, the Program Director of UNIKL E-Debate Youth Cup 2021, UDYC 2021 that will be
Excuse
held
me?
today
Can you
and
guys hear me?
25th of September.
I can't hear you guys.
Yeah, we can hear you clearly, Tiara.
Yara, perhaps you can check on your mic as well and your sound system. Okay. Again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning. My name is Muhammad Irfan bin Jasni, the Program Director of UNIKL E-Debate Youth Cup UDYC 2021 that will be held today, 25th and 26th of September, which can be live streamed all day from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. UDYC 2021 is organized by UNICAL Student Representatives Council USRC in collaboration with the Orator Club of UNICAL MIDI, Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking MIDP, and Campus Lifestyle Division CLD of University Kuala Lumpur. The objectives of UDYC 2021 is to equip UNICAL students with improved critical thinking skills, to have more confidence to stand up for truth when the discussion is promoting falsehood or inaccuracies, to achieve enhanced teamwork and skills and collaboration, to acquire better poise, speech delivery, public speaking skills. A bit of a background of this competition. UNICAL Student Representative Council USRC 2021 has planned to have an inter-UNICAL debate competition between all campuses. This inter-debate competition will foster and cultivate the feeling of competitiveness and ensure the longevity of the art in debating. This inter-debate competition will be the starting stone for the future debating competition in UNICAL. New talents will arise and represent UNICAL in future competitions. The format for this debate competition is Asian parliamentary format, which is 3 versus 3. Let's go on to the tentative of this competition. Day one, we will be having the preliminary rounds, which goes from round one to round four. And then second day will be about quarterfinals and semifinals, and also the closing ceremony in which we will be having the final round of UNICAL E-Debate Youth Cup 2021. With that, so I pass over to the chairperson to go and continue with the debate today. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the speech, Mr. Irfan Jasni. Hello everyone and welcome again to the UNICAL E-Debate Youth Cup 2021. Thank you to all the lecturers, students and supporters for being here today. My name is Humaira and I will be your chairperson and timekeeper for this session. Alright, for today's session, will be adjudicated by Mr. Taki, Mr. Lukman Akil and Mrs. Siti Yohanis. We are going to start with the first round of the preliminary rounds by reading the motion. Okay, the motion for this debate is this House would introduce a ceiling on a person's income. The members of the government side representing UNICAL MSI are Anissa as the Prime Minister, Shazlin as the Deputy Prime Minister, Fanshu as the government whip. The reply speech from the government side will be given by Fanshu. Is it?
The reply speech will be by Anissa.
Right. For the reply speech, it will be given by Anissa. Okay, for the members of the opposition side representing UNICAL Mestec, Afiq as leader of opposition, Tiara as the deputy leader of opposition, and Alia as the opposition whip. The reply speech from the opposition side will be given by Afiq. Alright, before we begin, I will briefly explain the rules. Each of the main speeches is 7 minutes long. The first and last minute of each of these speeches is known as protected time, which means that no point of information or POI may be asked by the opposing bench. The reply speeches are 4 minutes long and are entirely protected from POIs. As the timekeeper, I will mark the opening and closing of protected time with a single bang, once at 1 minute and a second time at 6 minutes. I will also indicate that a speaker's time is up with a double bang. If a speaker continues for a further 15 seconds, the indicator will start with triple bang and thereafter continuously until the speaker stops. Okay, the indicators for the reply speech will start at single bang at 3rd minute, double bang on 4th minute. If the speaker continues for a further 15 seconds, the indicator will start with a triple bang and thereafter continuously until the speaker stops. Could I also politely ask that phones be switched off for the duration of each debate? If you wish to use your phone, please mute your mic and switch off your video to respect the ongoing session. Participants, you will have a 10-minute grace period if you are disconnected. Please continue your speech during that period. We would move on to the next speaker if you fail to reconnect after the grace period. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming the first speaker of the debate, the Prime Minister, to the floor to open the debate. Please welcome.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
Anissa.
Okay. Uh, okay. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. When it comes to wages, there is salary. Income derived from human uniquely wages and salaries cover all compensation made to employees for either physical or mental work, but they do not represent the income of the self-employed. Assalamualaikum and good morning to the respected precise timekeeper, honorable adjudicators, members of the opposite team, and members of the floor. Before I put forward my case today, I would like to define today's motion. This House will introduce a ceiling on a person's income. The definition of that is a maximum wage or a price ceiling imposed on how much a compensation a worker can receive in a given period of time. It can be imposed as an absolute level or as ratio between high and low wage earners. If its binding constraints below the market wage, then it will tend to result in the usual problems associated with price ceilings and similar price controls, though other policy considerations may outweigh the costs. While income is that money that a person or business receive in return for working, providing a product or service, or investing capital. A person's income may also derive from a pension, a government benefit, or gift. We from the government team agree with the motion. Today, as Prime Minister, will be about the low income, focusing on the low income. My Deputy Prime Minister will be talking about the professional integrity, and our whip will rebut and sum up our team case. Ladies and gentlemen, members of this beautiful. First of all, why we agree with the motion that we want to focus on the low income, so there will no discrimination in terms of wages toward them. What will happen when there is no discrimination in terms of wages? Wages discriminations means paying someone less because of their gender, race, age, or religion. Paying and employing less because of a protected characteristic violates the law. For example, paying women less than men for the same work qualifies as wage discrimination. Why this is important? Because providing equal pay for all employees will also reduce the risk of facing an equal pay claim and help avoid expensive legal fees which could not cost thousands which could cost thousands of pounds, lost productivity as management gather evidence and deal with tribunal hearings, and also damage employee relations and morale. Before I move on, any POI? No, thank you. Why we focus on the low income? We focus on the low income because it will help to boost their family income, which indirectly contribute to the domestic economy. Domestic economy activities such as purchasing, providing needs for their family. The equality of rights is very important in the work area because, for example, if a pregnant woman try to provide for her family as she is a single mother, but there's a discrimination happens at the office, then it will be so unfair for her to provide for their children, especially when she is pregnant. Imagine this is your mother
POI.
and she situation. Sorry.
POI. Can I ask a POI?
No, thank you. Sorry. Discriminated practices can be direct or indirect. Direct discrimination arises when explicit distinction, preference, and exclusion is made on one or more grounds. For example, a job assignment for men only constitutes direct discrimination. Equality of opportunity and treatments allows all individuals to fully develop their talents and skills according to their expressions, preferences, and to enjoy equal access to employment as well as working conditions. To achieve a full freedom of discrimination, employment, and occupation, the mere removal of discriminatory practices does not suffice. It is also necessary to promote equality of opportunity and treatment in the workplace at all stages of the employment relationship, including recruitment, retention, promotion, and termination practices. No, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I have talked about um, the low income, why we focus on the low income, like the B40 section, and then why discrimination in workplace should not be there. Through these reasons, we propose, and it is clear that we should introduce a ceiling on person's income. This is to provide equality and to avoid discriminations of human rights at workplace. With that, I raise my case. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that speech. Now, please welcome the first speaker of the opposition, the leader of opposition, to open the case for their side. Please welcome.
Mic testing, mic testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Hello,
can
mic.
hear you.
All right. Okay. Starting my speech in three, two, one. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to the respected speaker, cautious timekeeper, honorable judges, member of the government team, and members of the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, business can go down tomorrow or next week or even next month. Unemployment is keep increasing. And so in this current situation, COVID-19 impacts several countries such as Malaysia when it comes to economic sectors. Our motion today, the House will introduce a ceiling on a person income. It will be opposed by our side as the opposition. I will explain my team flow for today's debate. Me as the first speaker, leader of opposition, will give one argument, and my deputy opposition will present two arguments and follow up to my third speaker, which will summarize our case today. I will not challenge the definition given by the government today, as it is should in our definition too. And a status quo as for our today's motion is a significant dropping percentage of unemployment in many countries during COVID-19, with still continuing declining rate at the moment. And members of the hall, I will start my debate with rebuts from the government side. Government confused as today they are, if they are talking about low income situation of a single mother discrimination. I'm pretty sure I really not clear about what the government trying to say just now. And the government mentioned that no discrimination for low income person as their points, their argument to propose this motion. But we should see this as a whole and not only for low income employee and a discrimination about low income employee. I don't think discrimination happens only for low income employee. We should start we should think about the employer also. When why I say that, I suggest that it would be great that we should protect different side also. Employer and employee should be taken count to, and that's bring to my point where the reason why the opposition side opposed to this motion is because of the supply and demand model, which we believe it is a crucial point to stand up. Why? Back to supply and demand models. The moment we set a ceiling on income or setting a minimum wage, the demand for labor increase. However, the supply or the numbers of workers won't meet the demand or the expectation. When the imbalance happen, it will impact both side of parties, the employer and the employee also. How I'm saying that that this point is important because when employer increase the wage, the demand for the labor will decrease, but the value of employment is increased. But when supply of labor increase, the rate of employment will increase too. This will check the balancing of supply and demand. An employer must consider this factor to make sure they are not on the losing side. Is there any POI? I take that as a no. So this could impact their businesses as it is not imbalanced. And why this is why from the opposition side we state this argument that uh, demand the supply and demand model is a very important example of factors that we should uh, consider for this today's motion. And as the government as the opposition side, our mechanism for our stance is simple. We make sure that by not having a ceiling income, employer could easily alter the needs of their business according with their economic situation. Is there any PI? I will take that as no also. And uh, last but not least, as for the debates today, uh, our our opposition side are truly are truly concerned about today's motion because it could impact uh, not only the employee but employer and as a whole community, where if the imbalance happening, it could be ruin uh, the environment of having employment, and also having a good businesses during a current situation or a different situation for the employer. And our opposition side, for the before we end our my argument and debate session of today, our opposition side are simple. We believe that by having a simple income for a person, it could ruin the supply and demand concept, and we need to think for the both side beneficials. That's why the motion for today, the house will introduce a ceiling on a person income, should be rejected and opposed. And that's all from me. Thank you.
All right. I would like to thank the speaker for the speech and welcome the second speaker of the government, the Deputy Prime Minister, to continue the case for their side.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, is it Shazlin?
Yes.
All right.
Is it clear?
Yes, it is clear.
Kenapa I macam tak dengar apa-apa eh?
Can you hear me? Shazlin? Shazlin, are you okay?
Hello, can you see me? Am I
All right,
audible?
yeah. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Alright. Eh, kenapa call? Alright. I will take my POI, verbal POI. Sorry, just a minute. Kenapa call? Okay. Alright. I shall begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, work has become an obligation to make a living, pay bills, utilities, and easier to question how they live with what has been said. What is the impact or effect if that happens? Before we move on to our arguments, Assalamualaikum in a very pleasantly a bit too wise panel of educators, accurate timekeepers, worthy opponents, comrades, and last but not least, members of the House. The motion for today: this House would introduce a ceiling on a person's income, which we agree to do so. A maximum wages may be imposed as the signals of social virtue to oppose income inequality or to favor the interests of certain politically influential businesses and industries over others. So, moving on for today, I'll be doing I will doing three things. Firstly, I will rebut the point that have been given by the opposition side. Secondly, I will present my argumentations. And thirdly, which last but not least, I will summarize my speech. So you see, on the opposition side, they fail to understand that this could actually helps to reduce cost of firms. And in some labor markets, labor may have the ability to bargain for wages, which includes substantially economic rent. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we have explained why we agree to do so, and we believe this is true. For that, I shall focus to my main points now in this matter. Firstly, I will focus on professionals to maintain their professionalisms and integrity, whereby at the minimum wage, the quantity of labor demanded by employers is greater than the quantity of labor high skilled workers are willing to supply. In this case, we believe employment of high skilled workers will fall as they withdraw from the market and employer will not be able to fill job vacancies for high skilled work. Second point of today, which
POI.
is no thank you, which is impact by maximum wage, whereby the firms will be impacted by the maximum wage will be less productive and less profitable to the extent that they depend on the availability of high skill level. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, we believe to agree to do so. And for that, I am proudly to propose. Um, for I finish any POI?
Hi, POI can.
Yes,
Hello.
you may.
All right. Do you think that integrity of which can reflect by what that person have, such as skills or any certificates?
Um, sorry. Can you repeat the questions? Sorry.
I believe this is a POI session. Thank you.
Yes, POI sessions. Sorry, can you repeat the questions back? Because I can't hear.
Uh, I'm asking if the integrity of which that you mentioned just now, is it reflects to someone who have certificates or any industrial expertise that can set the integrity of which and not by having a ceiling income.
Okay. I believe no. Because even people with certificates, sorry. No, because even people with certificates Sorry. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'll answer the questions. Thank you for the POI. Okay. Yes. We don't believe that because even people with certificates, we are focusing on every aspect, any types. So yeah, that will be it. Uh, so yeah, that will be the end of my speech. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the speaker for their remarks and welcome the second speaker of the opposition, the deputy leader of opposition, to continue the debate for their side.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Tiara.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. If you understand residual income, you will walk through the brick what to get it. Assalamualaikum and good morning to everyone present here today. My job here today as a deputy of leader opposition is to do two things. Firstly, I rebut and respond to what have the affirmative first and second speaker has said. And then I will give two of my arguments, which is firstly, what happened to having a minimum wage can impact, and secondly, how having a ceiling on a person income can rising a level of unemployment. Now let's move on into my rebuttal. The affirmative team have continuously and enormously stated that providing equal waging is a must. So I'm asking, what happened to people with a small business? You only see of the employees have you look at the person that need to pay the workers. You only focus on the employees as not the employer. An affirmative team also said that about the B40. I believe the government have give some financial help. I think that clearly already helped them. So instead of we only look at one side, which is B40 employees, we also have to look as a whole, including the employer. So my first speaker said, argue what he just said. We simply believe that the more employees that they take, the less profit that they get to be able, because they need to be able to pay to the minimum amount of wage, so their profit are going to decrease. Move on. Without further ado, let me move on into my argument. What happened to having a minimum wage can impact? So why did I say this? Well, you might say having a ceiling income can increase levelty of guarantee, but also, how about people with a small business, like I just said? Hence, they need to increase the price of whatever they selling or they doing to be able to pay the out amount of workers they used. So, for example, a small restaurant or a small kedai runcit, they need to high up their price or their stuff or their food to be able to pay off the workers that they used. And this also going to impact the economics, which is the price are going to be high up. And besides, people doesn't want to eat or buy their stuff anymore because the price that been increased too much with over. This can impact their source of income. So this is gonna worse of the both side between employer and employees in the same time. And next, my second point is rising level of unemployment. Just take a look in the pandemic situation that have been happening in our country, and also the impact of world, like I say, world of incoming sector has been worse. Business doesn't go or do well. So what happened? For example, a business need to unemploying their employees just because of the problem that they've been facing without enough of money to pay back to their workers. So instead of they're increasing their price or whatever they're selling, they're unemployed their employment, and now increasing in employment are happening with a significant supporting by, in addition to the impact on public health. Disease since 2019 has caused a major economic shock, and therefore hence are struggling. Well, the affirmative team plan might fix the original problem, but besides, it's also going to give a rise to a number of side effects. People are struggling, are facing a problem, and you have no doubt that the result that the pandemic had already caused a massive discolation among small business and employers. We don't want to be this situation going to be worse. And lastly, we strongly believe that we shouldn't introduce a ceiling on a person income. Thank you.
All right, now let us welcome the government whip to summarize the debate for the government side.
Hold on. Am I audible?
Yes, Fanshu.
All right, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Assalamualaikum and a very good day to everyone. Thank you for the chairperson, the members of opposition side, and my friend at the government side. Members of the floor, for today's debate, the motion is this House will introduce a ceiling on a person income. Before I move on to my job scope, as a whip for the government side, I will explain to the members of the floor what we will do for today. First thing first, I will rebut all the points that have been given by the opposition side. And secondly, I will stand with the government side, and based on the point that being given by my teammate, I will summarize all of this kind of debate. First thing first, I will rebut about the Prime Minister speech, which is when he say that focus on low incomes. Sorry, my bad. I'll focus. I will start my speech with. I will rebut about the leader opposition. When he say that by not having a ceiling income, there will be something that they can focus on. May I know what you think when you say that they are not having ceiling income? Don't you think that about the equality, about the human right? For a normal human being, it is not fair enough. So we must having ceiling income. So we can need to have the ceiling income, need to introduce on the person income. So that's the reason why we need to have the ceiling income and need to introduce it to the person. And secondly, when the party leading opposition said that about the small business, first thing first, Did you hear about it? My prime minister and deputy prime minister already mentioned about the low income and the professionalism. About the small business, it was included in the low income thing. Okay, so that's the reason why. So that's the reason why. Uh, my prime minister and deputy prime minister already say. Might think you might not be clear about it, but let me clarify it for you. For your information, Deputy Prime Minister, small business also in the B40 or ADM40. Yes, you say that this is pandemic outbreak and something. Yes, most of the people have lose of their job and so on. So that's why they are doing small business. That's why they are giving the government give that what we can say they give all the things, the money and so on, because to
POI.
support them. No, thank you. This is because of why they are still in the B40 and 40. Okay. So I will understand with all my leader, my deputy prime minister say that. First of all, my lovely prime minister say that focus on low income, so there will be no discrimination to the wages. For example, we need to focus on low income in Malaysia. In Malaysia, they have three type of person income. They will be divided by three type, which is B40, M40, and T20. Based on that, we can see there are three type of the wages that having in Malaysia, and that was by that three type of the wages. There are a lot of difference in that. Okay.
POI.
No, thank you. So by focus on low income, so there will be no discrimination toward the maximum wages. Okay. Yes, POI.
POI. POI.
Yeah, maybe both of you, any one of you.
So you were saying that employers is also one of the B40. So what would you say about the employers still have to pay the minimum wage with their stuff is B40? Could
Sorry,
you please answer for that?
pardon. Can you please pardon your question? I couldn't hear clear.
So you were saying that employers is one of the B40, but yet they still have to pay the certain amount that they have to pay the workers. So what would you reply for that?
Hold on, give me a second. Hmm. Okay. That's why I already made my statement that B40 also include inside there. Alright? Because they also need to pay for it, yeah? Okay. So thank you for the POI. So can I continue? So what the party leader opposition said that I already explained you. So based on that, I will summarize my cases for today. So moving on to summarizing up, what I can summarize it is before it, to the ceiling price, what my Deputy Prime Minister said that because of why the reason to maintain their professionalism. For example, some of them are a doctor or lawyer. Most of them have high ceiling income. It is because of their profession. It also help them to maintain their professionalism and integrity. Can you imagine if we control their ceiling income to that person to certain income, it can might be how's that having that so they will be having a corruption. This is because of we control their income and they get the income that they are not supposed to be paid. So before I end my speech, I would like to say that government side accept this motion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Government Whip. Please welcome the Opposition Whip to sum up for the opposition team.
Before I begin, may I ask if I am audible?
Yes, yes, Alia.
Okay, so Assalamu alaikum and good morning, honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen of the esteemed audience, timekeeper, Miss Chairperson, and members of the floor. I am the third speaker acting as the opposition whip. I prefer to take my POIs verbally. Thank you. So first, I will be rebutting the government's party arguments, and after that, I shall summarize my leader of opposition and deputy LO on why this house rejects the motion of introducing a ceiling on person's income. So to rebut the prime minister, she set the definition as the maximum wage on the price ceiling imposed how much of a worker can receive, and she focused on low income. I believe that the government side is quite confused about our motion today. The bad network did not help with it either. So this is what from what I can gather, the government side's main points are providing equal minimum wage. See, we are not saying we're against equal pay. In fact, we're for it. But we're saying that putting a cap on that amount presents more problems than solutions. Now, moving on to the deputy prime minister, she mentioned integrity of wages. Again, we are not saying employees should not have low wage. We're saying how we should not limit the amount of wages for employees. How is paying a worker the amount they're entitled to not basic human rights? Because she mentioned that uh, by putting a ceiling on the income, it leads to less discrimination. Is paying a highly educated person's more salary compared to a high school dropout discriminatory? I'm not sure. And again, I was quite confused with her points. Sorry, that was for the government whip. Now to summarize the our side of the opposition, my leader of opposition mentioned that discrimination happens in all settings from many factors, like the prime minister said, such as gender, race, and religion. And he touched up upon the supply and demand model. The moment we set a ceiling on the income or setting minimum wage, the demand for labor increases. This leads to conflicts in management and often may lead to legal issues. We've seen this happen many times. For example, workers going on strike regarding minimum wage due to them not being able to meet the expectation of labor. Businesses will not benefit from having a ceiling on the income because it is a threat to profit. The lower the minimum wage is, the more workers get employed and the lower the profits become. And in general, since consumer spending increases with wages, an increase in economic growth is another advantage of raising the minimum wage. Moving on to my deputy opposition, because, for example, minimum wage in Malaysia, because of the minimum wage, for example, in Malaysia, small businesses will suffer and will be forced to raise the price of their products to keep their businesses afloat, which leads to a rise in unemployment, especially for the lower class and especially in this pandemic. Before I continue, any POIs? Not at all? Okay, then. Um, give me a moment. All right, so that's all from the government side, and therefore I contend that the motion this House introducing a ceiling on a person's income should be rejected. Thank you.
Sorry,
Again,
just now I
yeah,
like POI.
yes, please.
Okay. So, do you agree to introduce a ceiling on a person's income?
No, we do not agree with that. Anymore?
No. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to thank the speakers for all their speeches. Now, let's give the government and opposition sides 5 minutes to prepare for the reply speech. Please be aware that the reply speech will be for 4 minutes and no POI is allowed.
Uh, can you hear me? My shit. Is everyone listen? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Starting my reply speech in three, two, one. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to the members of the hall. I believe that my read from my side doesn't have much to say as the government side didn't give much insight for our debate session today. Now I will represent my reply speech. The Prime Minister from the government side told us that the motion they argue is there will be no discrimination for low income wage, and move on to their second speaker, talking about the integrity of wage and impact of the maximum wage. Isn't this about setting a minimum and not a maximum? And I don't think that the government side understand today's motion, and it is very confused and out of the debate context today. The government side also touched about the human right. Are they really aware that the discussion from opposition side are talking about human rights too? Is it human rights are for only low income people? Is it today's motion about the ceiling income only affect employee and not the employers? It is very unreasonable to mention. And I believe that my deputy and whip are doing a great job explaining our opposition side. We mentioned, and I emphasize that first, I state that the need check the supply and demand concept, and my deputy mentioned the could increase of cost doing businesses and it eventually rising level of unemployment. Why we on this opposition side say so? Because we believe that this motion today is not all about the employee. We must understand that it happened on both sides, the employee and employer, which are in the same business, in the same circle, and we need to make sure the check of the supply and demand balance to make sure that this circle will not break off eventually because of the imbalance. And with this by this if we set up a minimum ceiling, a ceiling income for the employee, it also could increase the cost of doing business for the employer. It is so unfair that the employer need to pay that certain amount when the business is not doing well. And eventually, while the business is not doing well, and it eventually rising the level of employment because the employer need to unemploy the employee because of this kind of situation and the imbalance of the check. And ladies and gentlemen, our opposition side are easy. We oppose our motion today because we believe that we need to protect every side. By not having a ceiling person income, it could be a big impact to the economic sectors. During the unprecedented time like this one, the COVID-19 situation, business can go down. And also citizens is desperately looking for jobs. We should not make them a hard enough to find or looking a job. We should consider them. Is it unfair to think low income people who are only impact with this ceiling wage? How about someone who are struggle too? That's why members of the hall, we the opposition side, firmly believe that we should win to this debate as we are clearer and well tracked. That's why the motion for today, the House will introduce a ceiling of a person income should be rejected and opposed. And last but not least, a quote from Jimmy Carter as mentioned that everyone has a right to peaceful coexistence, the basic personal freedoms, the alleviation of suffering, and the opportunity to lead of a productive life. And that's all from me. Thank you and very.
Um, Hello, am I audible? Hello, hello.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Can I start my reply speech? Okay, I'll start my reply speech in three, two, one. Ladies and gentlemen, when employees are paid well, they enjoy better mental and physical health. When employees are healthy, their performance improves. They are happier and are motivated to improve their skills. Business owners benefit from having happy, motivated workers on their team. This is why many companies, even industries in which low wages have historically been the norm, will voluntarily pay more than minimum wage to their workers. Motivated workers may also be more likely to pursue career advancement in their current workplace rather than departing the company as soon as they receive a better offer. This enables employers to train and promote workers from within the company, which is often less risky than hiring someone from outside the organization. Then, in our speech, we state that the minimum wage can also provide social stability within communities. Workers who are assured of receiving a minimum income are often more likely to remain in their current jobs. This benefits employers who are not forced to deal with the inconvenience of high turnover. In addition, workers sorry. In addition, workers who earn more are less likely to leave their communities in search of better wages as well. This results better stabilized neighborhoods benefiting all who live there. Equal pay is essential because every worker deserves to have a voice and be properly represented and protected. All modern organizations have the responsibility to ensure that all of their workers are valued and provided with tools and resources to feel secure. All workers deserve to be empowered with the ability to better defend their best interests. What we are trying to defend here is that minimum wage opens opportunity for workers. All workers deserve to be treated equally. Mm. Mm. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we strongly believe on what we stand and what most important, what we try to achieve full freedom. Thank you.
Thank you for the reply speech. I'm so sorry. I have some difficulties before. All right. With that, the debate for this round has ended. Let us give the educators some times to discuss this round result. The educators may move to their respective rooms. I ask the participants to please remain in this room. Thank you. All right, I hope all the educators have already joined this session. So I pass the floor to the educators.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Taki.
Okay, by the way, my house is undergoing a few constructions currently, so just ignore the background noise. If I'm unclear, you can just stop me immediately and just ask me to repeat back the last thing that you heard. Hello, my name is Taki. I'm one of the EdgeCom members. Thank you so much for the debate. Here's I'm going to give my oral adjudication. So there are three parts to my oral adjudication. The first part is that I have three general comments I like to make before moving on to the verdict. After I give my verdict, I'll justify my verdict. And if you have any personal feedback, you can approach me, perhaps in Zoom. You can also approach my two other trainees. They have really, really good, insightful things and comments that could really help you guys moving forward to next round. So, general comment. I think the first comment I like to make is be very wary of speaker roles, and I think that's really important if you are starting off fresh in terms of debating as a sport. And what I mean by that is that structure is really important in terms of flagging where you are currently in your speech, because when we were discussing during the judge deliberation, like most of the judges didn't quite get what you were trying to articulate, and it's not a point of we don't understand what you're saying. We understand, but we just don't know what the point you are making, because the way debaters tend to give their arguments or like give their speech, it's such a roundabout way kind of thing, and it's kind of hard to get what you're essentially trying to put forth in order to make your judge understand your argument. So that's the first thing. So a couple of things is, for example, based on debate. So perhaps an argument from opposition in regards to how SMEs are badly affected could have been expounded much more. Or for example, how supply the effect that capping the person's salary, a person's income would affect supply and demand. The essential crucial part moving forward to the next round is that as judges, we're not trying to look into the kinds of like what does it affect or like who does it affect. What is important for a debater to do is that you need to tell us the logical process, the logical analysis of how does it affect. So we need to we want you guys to tell us a story in terms of how does the supply and demand affect when you cap a person's income or things like that. So that's the first thing. And it is largely intertwined with speaker roles, because if you read back the speaker's briefing, like you need to define context and define certain terms within the motion. It's important to not only define based on textbook, but also give a clear depiction of what is your status quo, what does the world looks like currently. And if you notice the motion, how it's capping a person's income salary, so obviously you were already on the right track, for example, in government in terms of discussing we need to address income inequality. But how does capping a person's salary addresses income inequality, considering that in status quo, you already have other things like, for example, welfare benefits, or for example, other state policies that specifically aims to alleviate people from poverty. So if you look at that specifically, there needed to be a lot more legwork from government in terms of explaining how does capping a person's salary would then necessarily create that surplus to, I don't know, funnel more money to welfare projects or more money to help the poor or things like that. Or maybe the income inequality could be could be lessened a lot more by virtue of your policy. So explaining context, explaining your status quo is really, really, really important, because it gets the ball rolling in terms of judges like clearly they they clearly know what you're trying to say, basically. So moving forward to the next round, my advice is basically just take a few time to think about what is your case, like what is the problem, have a clear problem statement, and then what is your solution. Your solution needs to be in response to your problem statement. It cannot be something random, bizarre, that does not have anything to do with your problem statement. So your policy has to specifically solve the problem, and you need to think about how it solves the problem. So don't worry if you don't have like 3 arguments or you don't have 2 arguments. I'm more than happy to accept just one argument, but that argument is like argued to its fullest extent, right? So so moving forward, just do those things. Just don't worry if you don't have a lot of arguments. The last thing I like to say is in terms of engagement, I think moving forward to the next round, round two, round three, what's important, because debate is what differentiates debate and like forum and other English like medium to a discourse medium, is that debating is basically engaging with another person. It's basically a discussion. And what's important here in debating is you need to engage with the other team. And I think in this debate specifically is that teams really suffered from engagement, because I think mostly engagements happen in this debate. The way you guys engage was by stating that, oh, that's not true. What they're saying is not true, and then you guys just moved on. And you've never properly gave me the reason as to why that's not true. So the way you rebut an argument is basically you need to first identify the premise of that argument. So for example, if the premise in this debate is that most companies, especially small, medium enterprises company, would lose out by virtue of government's policy, because they wouldn't have any resources and capital to grow their businesses and to grow their company, for example. So that's essentially the premise. They then subsequently give an example of, oh, you can see how Amazon or Alibaba grew by virtue of having a lot of capital being pumped in. And it's because their workers felt happy and their workers felt happy with their salary or things like that. That is an example. The initial premise was that it hurts the SMEs. So you need to rebut that premise. And there are ways for you to rebut that premise by not rebutting it by giving out another example, right? So moving forward, rebuttal, very, very important to rebut the premise. Do not rebut examples unless if the example is clearly wrong. And even then you can just point out, no, the example is wrong. It does not have anything to do with the motion. The example applies to another different situation or things like that. But basically, because I think in this tournament you will come across a lot of debaters who are not that experienced debating. So they tend to make arguments that are not argued to its fullest extent. So what you have to do as a debater to show that you are a dynamic speaker is that you need to build their argument for them. So the way you do that is, for example, if a person X argues about right to privacy or right to security, but they only give one reason to right to privacy, right to security, and you come up in opposition, you need to argue, you need to accept that argument to its fullest extent. So you need to say things like, so me accepting the best version of Gov's argument, and then I'm going to prove to you why even with Gov's best version of their arguments, they still lose this debate. So, and this really helps in terms of bumping up your speaker scores. Yeah, so really sorry for my really long general comments, but these are just tips moving forward to next round. How you could be better speakers generally. All right, thank you so much for the debate. We ultimately gave it to side opposition on a unanimous decision, so you can also approach my trainees for any personal feedback. So based on the debate, there were basically one contentious issue that was argued by both sides. So the first issue that I identified was what warrants a justification of a government's policy to cap a person's salary and income. So government was correct to suggest that there are instances that governments do this, and it's important for us to do this is for us to curb income inequality. They give us examples of things, for example, earlier part of the PM speech of how poor people are being left out and rich people they flourish by virtue of the capitalist system. They then subsequently make few argumentations, for example, supply and demand and things like that. The way opposition chooses to engage with demand also suggests that the policy that was given by government was creating more harms than good. So the few harms that they suggested was, number one, they said that the SMEs and small medium businesses would hurt a lot more than this and would eventually not grow as much as opposed to companies, bigger companies. And that's the first thing. The second thing, they also said that it hurts employment as well, because most people like join into a workforce in order to gain experience and things like that. Um, because when you gain experience and you gain resources and workforce, you can also get more in terms of your salary and also your income. So if you cap it to a maximum level, people are more likely to be disincentivized to join the workforce. Although this was not worded specifically in that way, but they were alluded to those points. So accepting best case from Gaf's case and also opposition's case, how did I weigh this? Because it was the burden from government to propose a model to curb income inequality and to like solve the problem of why do we actually need a cap on a person's income or a person's salary. So if you look at specifically in terms of how the bad impacts that was posited by opposition, those bad impacts, for example, small medium enterprises and also workforce being hampered by virtue of them not being incentivized to join or get a job in the first place, ultimately outweighs the specific benefits that were posited by government. Because if you look at on the scale of things, right, the individuals or companies who are small medium enterprises and people who join within the workforce, ultimately it comes to a lot within a person within a country's economy. So if you look at that on a on a micro scale and how it affects the economy, oftentimes you would see that the effect that it would have to a certain country is really, really devastating. So I really needed a comeback from government in terms of how they address these kinds of things and why people would still be incentivized to go to work, and why like small medium enterprises can still invest in R&D, can still invest within to grow their company and be a bigger company, like for example like Amazon, Google, Facebook, and things like that. So ultimately, by virtue of the harms that was given by opposition, we felt that most of the things said by government weren't really addressing the concerns that opposition pointed out, and therefore we thought opposition won the round. So yeah, that's basically my way. Thank you so much for the debate, and good luck for your next round.
With that verdict, the motion the House would introduce a ceiling on a person's income is rejected. Thank you to the adjudicators. Now, the participants may move to the main room for further instructions regarding the next round. Thank you to everyone for joining this session.